Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissach. Thank you so much for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it very, very much. You know, we're always very glad to get updates whenever we can, and we like to tune into people who are in the know. One of those people, very glad to have back on the program, Tanner Magee. Tanner, thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to come on.
We appreciate it. Look, there are so many things going on and so many things that you're involved in and kind of staying on top of. One of those things is some of the changes, and I know we go through a lot of red tape. We talked about all the challenges with some of these housing issues. Kind of walk us through what you've had to kind of deal with just getting people the things that they need.
Oh, look, it's been a gigantic frustration from the beginning of this. Early on, it was clear that FEMA wasn't not going to provide trailers in any kind of meaningful way. They made it. It kind of led us to believe that trailers were coming, but you could kind of read between the lines that this wasn't really going to happen. And then, you know, they always hide behind the FEMA regulations that they're not going to put it in a flood zone. I mean, you could read the writing on the wall. So we put a lot of pressure on FEMA and the state to do something. And so the state created their own trailer program, which is what you're seeing. Those are the trailers you're seeing those are not FEMA, they are being paid for by FEMA, but those are not FEMA trailers. Meaning they're not buying them, they're not putting them out, they're not according to FEMA's regulations. That's a new state program the state created for the very first time, and that FEMA has allowed for the very first time. And so we put a lot of pressure on FEMA and the state to make this happen.
Right.
So now it is a new program, and so it's had a lot of road bumps. It's been a lot of frustrations. I've had a lot of frustration with the program. The state hired a company called Aptum to purchase these trailers, register people, sign them up. And so we got off to a very bad start with Aptum. They were not doing what they needed to do as far as I was concerned, particularly on helping people get the application done. One of the things we did, I asked them for some information. They refused to give it to me, and so I fought them. I went to the state, and I said, we need to push pressure on the state to try and get the information from Aptum. The state really wasn't playing ball. I wrote really nasty letters to certain people at the state. The head of GOSEP resigned, which is the state agency that does all this, resigned shortly thereafter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's because of my letter, but it was like 2 days later. But I think he was not. I think he was in a point of his career where he did not feel like dealing with all the frustrations, and he just was kind of ready to step aside. So a new person stepped in that position, which I think was great, a younger person. Me and him have been working together, trying to get Aptum where they need to be. And so finally, we called a committee meeting in Baton Rouge at the Capitol to bring Aptum and other people in this response in front of and answer questions publicly. And it was at that point that the tune really changed with Aptum, to be honest with you. And what we found out was, and I really want to put this out to your viewers because I think it's really helpful, people were applying to the website. If they did not put all their information, it was not considered an application.
Oh, wow.
It was considered a registration. But nothing was ever being sent out to the person who went online and put their information in the form to let them know their application was incomplete. So there was a gigantic disconnect with people calling my office saying, I've applied, I haven't heard anything, I don't know why. And what we're getting from Aptum saying, no, we had this application, this was processed within 7 days, we got a trailer in their yard. I'm like, something is not lining up here.
Right.
And I could not get to the bottom of it. It was through the testimony they gave. And it took 6 hours, a 6-hour committee hearing before we finally got to the bottom of what the problem was. And the number one thing that was being left out of the application was their people's FEMA number. And so we also found out, so if you're listening at home and you've applied to the program, make sure your FEMA number is on the application. And make sure the application is complete.
Yeah, get it all done.
Get it all done. After the fact, we started after the meeting, the Aptum lady came up to me and said, look, I really do want to improve it. I do want to make it better.
Okay.
And she said, I'm going to start giving you daily reports. So now I'm getting a daily printout sheet of people who've registered, people who haven't applied, what the statuses are. And I think this is making a huge difference. At least I can now help people who I know they're getting lost in the system.
So now you can call somebody and say, hey, you've registered, they're missing this.
Yes.
Go back and do this.
Yes.
Go back and look at that application because the process is not. Tanner, the same thing that you're doing with Aptum is what's happening with a lot of people with their insurance.
Absolutely.
Insurance is not saying, oh, I need this. Well, how am I supposed to get you something that I don't know? And that's where we were with Aptum, and you had to jump through. You had to send. You didn't have to jump through anything. You had to jump over some hurdles and say, this is what we're going to do. I'm not going to stop until we get some answers. And you got some people that are now engaged.
Right.
So now they've been engaging. And
Correct.
so it's been some positive responses. Sometimes you got to squeak a little bit and then put some oil on it, and then the machine works a little better.
Absolutely. You know what else? I think everybody knows this too. Finally, at that public meeting, the person who was really in charge at Aptum came. And getting the cell phone number of the right person changes everything. I'd been through 25 different Aptum contact people who could not help me. It's like having an issue with your credit card, and you finally talk to the one guy with the credit card company who can actually do something.
The power to do something.
Yes.
Right?
Right. Finally got that person's cell phone number, and that's made a world of difference. Call her. She has been great. I want to be very clear. I'm very proud of what Aptum has done to kind of fix a lot of the situation. And I think it's not where we want it to be, but it's gotten miles better from where we were. I think they said now that meeting was last week. They had gotten like 500 trailers out to people. We're now at 1,700 as of yesterday. So you're seeing a gigantic.
Holy cow.
Yes.
More than 3 times where they were.
Right.
The improvements.
In a week's time. So, I mean, I want to commend Aptum for making the changes and kind of working with us, even if they didn't do in the beginning. Like I told you before the show, if I'm going to bark at you when you're doing things I don't like, I got to commend you when you're doing things that I do like. And so I think we've made gigantic strides as far as getting where we need to be with this.
What a huge challenge, and then a great turning point, and then some effectiveness. Kudos for having some things go your way, because I know you spend a great deal of time politically barking if you have to, and we don't always see those results. We're seeing some results, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes the stuff doesn't get to be shown to the public, all the hard work that goes into getting things moving, but it's definitely out there, and I do want people to know that. And the thing I want people to know is that we care about them, and we're doing everything we can. We're not forgetting by a single person, and we try our best to really not let them know they're not forgotten.
Right. And speaking of that, it always comes down to budget and where we are. And so the state budget, it's kind of an interesting place to be where you guys are. And we're always assuming that things are challenging. But with all of the recovery that needs to be done, there's some things that are kind of working in our favor with the state budget.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the good things, if you're going to say there's a silver lining in the gray cloud, is that all this purchasing everybody has to do, going to Lowe's, buying lumber, buying refrigerators, has really driven up the sales tax at the state and parish level. The state is going to come in with over $800 million surplus this year, which means we realized $800 million more dollars than we anticipated.
Wow.
When you back out where that money has to go, because a lot of that money is already pre-planned. So when you have a surplus, it doesn't, it has places got to go. One place has to go to a rainy day fund.
Sure.
We had to use a lot of that in the past.
Right.
So
last
now
couple of years.
Last couple of years, we've used a lot of it. We're replenishing like a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And then once you do all the different things that's got to go, we're going to have about $400 million
in
surplus
Wow.
that we can use. And what that money's going to go to, and why it's good news, is we're going to use the majority of that money on construction projects. So it's going to be put back into here. Mm-hmm. It's going to be put back around the state in road projects, bridge projects, school projects. I mean, these things that's where this is going to go. So, I mean, it's going to be a good thing for us at a time when we need it the most. And I think it's going to be a good thing. And one of the things we did last, and I want people to understand this too, is we floated a lot of stuff in Lake Charles after Laura. We gave the school board down there $30 million to do certain things, so that they could have some cash that they're going to need. And so we're going to do the same thing here. I mean, at the end of the day, and I think it's going to be more than $30 million.
Well, because of the widespread and extent of the damage, right?
Absolutely. I think we have had 3 times the amount of hurricane insurance claims that Lake Charles had, to give people an idea of what our destruction looks like versus Lake Charles's look like. And we never want to compare tragedy. It's bad for everybody. I mean,
right. No.
We always want to be clear on that. But just to give an idea of the amount of damage we're looking at here, we're definitely going to be in for some long haul. So, I think I was talking to some Lake Charles legislators yesterday. They needed more money. It was kind of like we were going to do it in troughs, and so now it's going to be probably a combined package is what we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at maybe $50 million and preliminarily trying to get some money going early, and then come back for another 50. They did 30, and again want another 30 this next year to kind of help push them along. A lot of this stuff is stuff that we ultimately are going to believe to be reimbursed by FEMA, but local government doesn't have the money. People think. You hear a lot of misconception about FEMA in that they think they just come in and give you the money. They don't. They pay you back.
Right. They come and look at what what they think you will need, and they look at what you spent.
Right.
But you got to spend it first.
You got to spend it first, and people don't understand that, and that's great. But if you don't have the money to put it out, or it's difficult and challenging for you, you can't do it. And so we really want to make sure this money can be used to help buy the things that the parish is going to need, and that way FEMA can come, and school board. It's not just parish stuff. I want people to understand.
Right.
A lot of the Lake Charles with school board, we're not sure exactly what the needs in Terrebonne are yet, but that way we can put the money out, and then we can work on being reimbursed by FEMA later, and that way it's not the parish being stuck on very tight margins with this stuff. So that's why when I tell you we have a $400 million extra to play with, it's a really good news for us right now.
Yeah, and that's not something that's not. I mean, it's rather unique, because had we not had all this if we had not had all this destruction, we wouldn't need all of this construction, and we see that as people having to go buy stuff, but hopefully people are getting some of that reimbursement from insurance, from FEMA, for their end, as well as some of the money that's coming in from sales tax.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we hope is happening for most people, and so I hope that when every challenge comes opportunity, and I think that opportunity is here for us now, and I think we're looking at some really big numbers coming into Terrebonne Parish. I think one of the things that scares me is with that opportunity is we have a chance here to really change the direction of the parish for the good. But of course, with the chance comes that you don't want Charlie Brown at the goal line and miss the kick.
Pull the ball.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't
want Lucy involved.
We don't want Lucy involved, exactly. So I'm always nervous when we get these kind of dollars. I think a lot of the stuff we did as a state in New Orleans after Katrina, we did Charlie Brown it, and I think that's in the back of my mind. We went out and spent a bunch of money on stuff that was not a return on investment, and that's what really led to the deficits we saw later.
Right.
And so we really want to make sure we're doing all this in a really smart investing kind of mindset of, we can change this parish's direction.
Right.
And the state too. It's
right.
not just, it's all of us together as partners. And I hope that we do that and we don't fumble.
Well, and there's a number of things that we learned from an insurance standpoint and a cost implementation from Katrina. A lot of things we learned from Lake Charles, and now we can do a better job. And it sounds like we're being really smart, or trying to be really smart about what the money's goes and what's used for. And that 400 is earmarked for a number of things, and fortunately, maybe another 400 that we can use efficiently to get back to some sense of normal.
Yeah,
after
exactly.
this storm.
Exactly. And I think, build out some infrastructure that we've been desperately needing in this parish. And when I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking about CPRA, coastal restoration kind of stuff too as well.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the battles that you guys have been seeing about the vaccine mandate, and we've heard some of the updates, kind of some national news about what's going on. Tell us where things are with you guys with that.
Yeah, I mean, the state, I think definitely for the legislative perspective, I can't speak for the governor's office. I think there's a disconnect there. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
I think from the legislative side of it, I think we are of a position that the vaccines should be available to anybody who wants one, but it shouldn't be forced on anybody. That this is a decision for you to make, and I think we even take the standpoint we encourage you to take it,
right?
But this is still your choice,
right.
And I think it also becomes a problem with children, and I think there's a lot of legislators who are very concerned about forcing children to do it without their parents' consent. I mean, I think that's.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a lot of angst about that kind of stuff, that the parents need to be engaged and involved in this process. I think that's kind of where the legislature is. In fact, we're having a hearing on it today while me and you are talking.
Okay.
I'm not on that committee, so I'm not there, but there is a committee, Health and Welfare, that's meeting today to kind of go over with the governor's office, kind of see where the governor's office is at. I'm sure that the governor's office wants to take more of a mandated approach, but kind of finding out where they are. And sometimes when you have these things, you get better information as far as what's going on, what's the status of things, the numbers, the counts. And so that's kind of the things they're going to go through today and kind of see where we are. But I mean, the good news is we've been on a good track in Louisiana for a while now. I mean, right. I think we haven't, there's no real, I think, urgency right now as far as mandating vaccines, because I think we've gotten over our last variant spread, and I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, and although there's been just kind of a slight increase here locally, we know that we're ultimately, the state's done very well, and so we've kind of been able to fight that off, if you will. I didn't realize that there was an option for kids to be able to do that without consent. I didn't know that there was an option for that.
Right. Well, that's been like their ongoing fight right now is between whether there's going to be mandated for schools through the state, forcing that mandate on people. I think you've also seen it's been kind of a political fight between Bessie and the Department of Education, the governor's office. That's one of the things I wish that we did a better job of educating the public on.
Okay.
When we hit education issues, they think the legislature is in control of everything, like we are the thing. There's a whole other elected body statewide that's really in charge of education.
Right.
And we're kind of like the big, 8,000-foot view, but Bessie's doing the detail work on this stuff. And then there's the Department of Education that the governor's kind of office does. So the legislature's role in educational issues tends to be more backseat.
Right. A little more administrative with regards to what you vote on for what information gets shared with you through those three entities. Governor's office, Department of Education, and Bessie.
And so it's sometimes it's harder than people realize for us to assert ourselves. They think that we just, we're there for everything and,
Tanner decided this.
Yes. I'm like,
wait a minute. I didn't even get a vote.
Exactly. I'm like, this is Bessie, guys, And,
right.
And I encourage you to contact your Bessie. And then, look, you also have the school board. I mean,
right. That's exactly right.
Education has the most layers of policymakers involved than anybody else.
Right.
And yeah, in a way, we're the ultimate say, but we don't have as much constitutional authority because of Bessie in the education space. So that's been the fight. And I think I think Cade Brumley, who's a superintendent, head of the Department of Education, has been not wanting to take a mandated approach. I think the governor's office has been more trying to push Cade into taking more of a mandated approach. Mm-hmm. And I think kind of Bessie and there's a whole this is what I'm saying. It's like a dance.
It's the Potomac two-step, if you will,
exactly.
Right, to quote a movie.
Yeah, and it's not two partners. It's not us and the governor's office like a lot of issues. It's like us, the governor's office, Bessie, the school board, Superintendent Philip Martin. Like, I mean, it's a very big, wide breadth of suit, and with a lot of people stepping on each other's toes in this dance, right?
Right.
And so I think, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how it all plays out.
So it's not a dance; it's a hoedown.
Exactly.
We got partners switching out. We got people coming in. I'm not dancing with this one.
Yes.
That kind of thing. And so it's just important for people to realize that, again, there are lots of layers to this. It's not like, okay, there's a vaccine mandate.
Right.
It just doesn't happen that way.
And people think that I can pick up the phone on these issues and call somebody and do it, and I can't because, like I said, we're going over ad nauseum now, but it's so layered that I don't have that sort of power or authority. Look, if everybody in the state wanted to give me the kind of power and authority, I would gladly take it.
Yes, right. Yeah, and we would trust you with that information. In our last minute now, is there anything that you feel like you need to kind of share as an update overall? I'd like to say that the overall update is that we are moving in a positive direction.
Yes. I mean, I think, we definitely took a punch in the gut with this storm, and I think me and you both been frustrated, not just with government, but insurance companies. We had a 5-hour meeting with insurance yesterday to try and push them to do the right thing. We could have had a whole probably 2-day segment on that.
That's exactly right.
But I think, we're finally getting some steps in the right direction, and I think that progress hopefully is around the corner.
Well, the other thing is that we've got people fighting for us who know what they can and can't do, what kind of needles they can move at different times. And so we're very, very thankful that the one thing that stuck out to me in just our last 30 minutes together is that not one single person is going to be left unheard or left behind. And
Absolutely.
That's something that y'all are dedicated to. So thank you, Tanner, for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And appreciate you coming on. And, of course, that's State Representative Tanner Magee sharing some of his thoughts with us and what he's doing to make sure that Louisianians get what they need. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local programming when we return.